Hi, and welcome to the Like Father, Like Son music podcast. I'm Jesse.
And I'm Jonas, and on this podcast we'll be showcasing discographies from metal, punk, hardcore, or any other bands we enjoy listening to.
So today we're going to go through a band that we both really enjoy. It's a band that has gained a lot of popularity lately. Lots of love for this band, lots of hate for this band. So we're going to break it down, tell you our thoughts on their discography and where they might be heading. So the band is Turnstile. So Turnstile was a hardcore band. Started off in 2010, Baltimore, Maryland. The lineup for the original Turnstile was on vocals Brendan Yates, formerly, right? He's not with Trapped
No,
Under Ice.
he is.
He is
still,
okay.
Yeah.
So he plays drums for the hardcore band Trapped Under Ice. Bass, Franz Lyons. Drums, Daniel Fang. Rhythm guitar, Sean Cullen. And lead guitar, Brady Ebert. Started off in 2010. Pretty much a straight up hardcore band, real heavy groove band. And that's around the time that I first heard them. When did you first hear Turnstile?
So I first heard Turnstile, it was like around 2013, and I was really little. I was like in kindergarten, first grade. And I remember hearing them like in your car, like very, very vividly. There were some parts to certain songs that like stuck with me. So that's how I was able to, like many years later, figure out who they actually were just based off that.
Yeah, so I'm a huge New York hardcore fan. I'll say the 80s through the early 90s, before things started kind of changing. So their first demo was 2010. It was a digital download. It was 3 songs, but the three songs that were on there ended up being on their next release. And when I first heard them, it really brought me back to that early New York hardcore sound, when things were just really lighting up. I was buying like Revelation Records 7 inches constantly, First Sick of It All and Warzone and all that stuff. And it progressively got more and more heavy and more groove oriented. And these guys, right from the get-go, their first 7-inch, which was 2011 Pressure to Succeed, that was on Reaper Records. 6 songs, 7-inch, goes by really quick, but man, what a great 7-inch.
I agree.
Did you choose songs that you prefer on these
Yeah, I chose like specifics.
Okay.
So like for this 7-inch, for example, 2 songs that really stuck with me are Death Grip and New Rules. With New Rules, I really love that bass intro.
Yeah.
Franz really has that unique bass sound, and I appreciate him just kind of as like I would consider him like a second frontman in some sort of way. He has a really unique stage presence.
Yeah. No, these guys right from the start, if you're just getting into Turnstile and maybe you've only heard their latest stuff, you should go back and check out some older YouTube videos, because their shows were just off the walls, like just wild. Their stage presence has always been great, and it's great to this day. But if you look into those earlier shows, the 2011, 2012 shows, just bananas.
Yeah.
Really, really good stuff. So Pressure to Succeed, Death Grip for sure. One of my favorites on that. The Things You Do and Heavy Hand. I love that last song.
Yeah.
But like I said, it goes by so quick that you're just, which a lot of bands, like especially hardcore bands, they'll put out a full length, and just have a lot of songs on there. And I've always appreciated bands when they do a 7-inch or a quick demo, 3 or 4 songs, because it leaves you wanting more.
No,
like
yeah,
you want to hear more from that band, and that's what they did with this first 7-inch. It was like, I need to hear more of this.
No, totally. I was just thinking the exact same thing. I feel like it was best that they kind of just left it as like, all right, we'll put out something quick first, and then slowly and progressively they led to their first LP. But I feel like that way it just like it's like a cliffhanger in some sorts. Like it shows what they have to offer, and then it goes by so quick. I feel like, especially Pressure to Succeed specifically,
it really does.
Those songs are like 2, maybe 3 minutes long. They're not necessarily really long songs, but you'll find that a lot in like hardcore and stuff like that. But that 7-inch in particular is just so good.
Yeah, it doesn't let up. It's just right through from start to finish. It doesn't let up.
Yeah,
and it just keeps you wanting more. And we ended up getting more in 2013.
Yeah.
So it was a little bit of a gap between recordings. But there again, this is a hardcore band. It's all DIY. You know, they're putting shows together and playing and stuff like that. So I'm sure that these, you know, first few releases was completely out of pocket. You know, they had to you know, scrounge and save and get into a recording studio and pay fees. And I think that's one thing about this band that kind of irks me, when people, you know, talk shit about them or whatever, or like, oh, they're this or they're that. It's like, these guys paid their dues.
Yeah.
You know, they were just like they were a regular hardcore band, and you know, still progressing and still learning to play their instruments. And a lot of people forget that, and they think that just because a band all of a sudden blows up, that, oh, well, it must be because, you know, they have other people writing their music, or they're working with this great producer and all
the term like industry plant gets used a lot.
It's so we'll get into that in a little bit when we get into that later stuff. But 2013, Step to Rhythm 7-inch, also on Reaper Records, and this one is a burner.
Yeah,
it's so goddamn good. What do you think about Step to Rhythm?
So Step to Rhythm for sure. Like, so 2013. So this was decently brand new. I remember you were listening to it a lot. The beginning, that first song, 7, going into Keep It Moving.
Yeah.
Like, my friends and I know Keep It Moving when it comes to the lyrics, like word for word. Like that song, both of those songs just are amazing. The whole 7-inch in general is great, especially the song Canned Heat, which comes after Keep It Moving. The song Pushing Me Away, Snake, pretty much the whole 7-inch is just like, you don't want it to end.
Yeah, it's amazing. So this 7-inch Step to Rhythm. So I've got 3 songs picked out, but really they're all good. They're all amazing, and you know, moment by moment you're gonna want to hear different things. But anyways, I chose Keep It Moving, and I have to include the intro 7 with that. It just runs into it, and it's perfect.
Yeah.
Pushing Me Away, which I think you mentioned, right? That's a great song, and Better Way is a fantastic song. And the things with these, they have this ability to write grooves like very few bands can pull it off. You know, like there's a lot of groove hardcore and stuff like that, but these guys, like,
there's something about it.
Yeah, there's just they have the ability to write these songs that gets everybody moving.
Yeah,
it's you know, bands try it, and you know, some do it, a song here, a song there, but these guys are so consistent, and it's like you just don't get a break.
Yeah, no,
you know. So yeah, those first 2 7-inches, definitely, if you haven't listened to them, maybe you're just getting into Turnstile or whatever, check those out. I'm sure they're on YouTube, and they're definitely on Spotify, so you can check out those 7-inches and see the roots of this band,
how it all
where
started,
they came from. I think that's a really important thing, especially, you know, don't judge this band until you've heard everything and see the progression, and you'll see, we'll talk about that progression, and it's definitely there, and it makes a lot of sense to me anyways.
Yeah.
All right, so moving on, 2015, the first full length, Nonstop Feeling, also on Reaper Records. It was 12 tracks. And so this album, I like this album. It's not my favorite, but you could see the progression of where this band was starting to go. To me, I hear a lot of crossover.
Yeah.
And I don't know that it was intentional. I don't know if their lead guitarist was into metal. He sure looks like he's into metal, and he plays like what does he play? Like a Jackson?
I'm pretty sure it's
like a metal guitar. So it's the formula is there. It's really, really good. You can definitely pick up on some little bit of Rage Against the Machine, maybe a little Leeway, Crumbsuckers. Like there's that. But again, where a lot of crossover bands, started hardcore, crossed over, they lost that groove. And this band, absolutely not.
Yeah.
It's just so good. What's your take on Nonstop Feeling?
So for Nonstop Feeling, I wouldn't consider it a favorite, but what I do appreciate about it, and I always will, is it helped Turnstile kind of stick to a specific sound, because you can definitely notice in the first 2 7-inch records, they're 2 completely different sounding records. Like you've got the first one, Pressure to Succeed, which is just very straight up, like a lot of breakdowns. With Step to Rhythm, it's a lot of groove. And then when you get to Nonstop Feeling, it definitely, like, they stuck onto that Turnstile formula. Yeah. And I appreciate that about them 100%. And with Nonstop Feeling, it went from there pretty much, and just the rest of their records, everything they released was great and is great. But Nonstop Feeling definitely helped them stick to like that Turnstile sound, that original sound.
Yeah, for sure. They definitely have like a pocket that they stick to. But the thing that I love about this band is they're not afraid to take chances.
Yeah.
They experiment a lot, but it works. And that's the difference. These guys are talented. I don't care what you have to say about any of the individuals that are in this band. As a unit, these guys gel. They're super talented, and they're not afraid to take chances. And when they take chances, it works. And that's a really rare thing, especially in the hardcore scene. I mean, think about the shift in the New York scene. I'm just using them as the New York scene because it was so big. I'm using that as a point of reference. When it started to kind of fizzle out, things weren't quite as original anymore. And a lot of those bands broke up, formed other bands, whether it was crossover. There was a lot of like alternative, like alt hardcore, alt rock hardcore. And there was only a handful of them that stuck out. And what you're basically seeing with Turnstile, you gotta think it's 2023 right now. So 13 years. They're kind of following the pattern of what a lot of hardcore bands did in the New York scene, and even in like, think about like Discord Records. You had like Minor Threat, straight up hardcore, great band,
and then like Fugazi,
which that's a good example of a band that it worked. Yeah, they took a chance. They started playing things that they wanted to hear, and they took off like a rocket. But there's a lot of other bands. I'm not a huge Shelter fan, and I know a lot of people are really into Shelter. I was never really into them, and that's kind of like, I don't know the exact nature of that band and who's in the band, but I know it was like, from other hardcore bands, they formed Shelter. And it was okay. I think about like...
Could even use like Civ as an example.
Yeah, like
Gorilla Biscuits members.
Right. So these hardcore bands were like, I don't want to say they were getting bored, but what happens with hardcore bands, punk bands, young bands, is that you learn how to play your instrument.
Yeah.
Most hardcore bands, they start off, it's all 3-chord, and they, not that there's anything wrong with that. It's great music, but some of those bands start to get bored. So they're like, well, I know how to do this now, or I know how to play it this way. Let's try doing that. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Quicksand is a good example of that. I know they're really popular. Again, I really think they're okay. I know that's like blasphemous because a lot of people love Quicksand, but it just didn't do much for me. Who else was there? Bold was actually... Have you heard the Bold 7-inch on Revelation?
I know that they're on Revelation, but I don't think so.
Great hardcore band, and then they put out a 7-inch. I know the lead track was Running Like Thieves, and it was a big departure from what they were doing. It was more like alt rock and stuff like that, but it was actually good, and I kind of wish that they had followed up with something with that. They didn't. So this is nothing new. Hardcore bands do this stuff. Punk bands do this stuff. You can think of like, Green Day or Blink-182, and you can rag on them as much as you want, but they were kids once. They started off in clubs. They paid their dues, and now they're gigantic. That shit happens. So anyways, I don't want to go on a big tangent about that, but it irritates me sometimes. But so Nonstop Feeling, what do you got on this for your faves?
So some of my favorites have to be the song Can't Deny It, Drop, and then the song Bad Wave. With this album in particular, I feel like this didn't get a lot of attention as opposed to their other releases, so it's kind of difficult for it to necessarily stand out. However, like for it's a Turnstile record. It was their first, LP. It's still going to be great, at least, in my opinion. But yeah, I just feel like it didn't get necessarily a whole lot of attention as opposed to their other releases. But how about you?
Yeah, this album was kind of under my radar. I can't remember exactly where I first heard this. It was probably like Spotify or something like that.
Yeah.
And when I first heard it, I liked it right off the bat. It wasn't one of those situations. Sometimes you are so used to hearing this band and you're like, oh, I can't wait till their next release. And they release something or full length and it's a bummer.
Yeah.
And they just didn't do it. They changed a lot. There's a lot of differences between Nonstop Feeling and Step to Rhythm. But it's still Turnstile, and you can tell that it's still Turnstile. It's still really a really aggressive album. And like I said, I hear a lot of that crossover in there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of like metal tinges, but it's definitely not a metal record for sure. So my top three on this: Gravity, the opening track, Drop, and Out of Rage. I really like that song. So yeah, overall, I think it's a good first full length album, and it definitely got them some attention as far as touring and stuff like that. They were kind of, playing different places, like other than just the Baltimore area and stuff like that.
Well, yeah, this year was like around the 2016, 2015 was kind of around the time they got like added on to like This Is Hardcore and stuff like that. They were definitely trying to promote Nonstop Feeling. Like that title kind of became their own like slogan in a way.
Yeah.
So this was like around the time where they definitely got introduced out into like the general public, not necessarily like just the Baltimore hardcore scene.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And the other interesting thing that I want to bring up with this album is, by first glance, it looks like an emo record.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like the title, Nonstop Feeling, it's very colorful. And I remember like the first time that I saw them, it was on Time and Space Tour, I think. And I remember the merchandise. And that's my one complaint to you guys. Get some friggin' merchandise that we want.
Yeah. No, that's true.
It's super colorful, and like, for guys like us, we don't want to wear that stuff.
Well, it's funny too, because it's not necessary. There's not a whole lot that like has really been done with like their logo and stuff.
Yeah.
It's kind of just turned into, that's one issue I have with them too, is that it'll be like a really bright pink shirt, and their logo will be really tiny in the corner.
Yeah.
And then it'll be sold for like $40, which I think that might be one of the reasons why people tend to consider them like, oh, industry plant, and like give them all those labels like that, just because they've kind of followed that path when it comes to merchandise, at least.
Yeah. I mean, there again, this band does whatever they want to do.
Yeah.
So, but that would be my one wish, is like get some black shirts for us. Even if it just says Turnstile, totally cool. Yeah, I remember there was a shirt with like a big smiley face on the front. That was just it. Bam. And I think it said Turnstile really small. So
yeah.
Small complaint, but it just shows you that this band, they do what they want to do. So again, it irks me when people are like, oh, they're this, or they're being pushed by the industry and stuff like that. And we'll get into the Grammy situation and all that nonsense.
Well, you could totally even take on this record specifically. There's 2 songs that I can think of like right off the bat. The song Blue Bayou and then Love Lasso. So when like they start to get all that hate, and it's like, which we'll end up talking about eventually when we get to their latest release. But those songs, even in like 2015, 2016, they were doing that kind of style. They were like, all right, well, we'll try something different. We'll still like stick to our roots, which is what they did, and add a little bit extra.
Yeah. They do. They do what they want to do, and I'm sure that when they recorded that album, Nonstop Feeling, they weren't looking into like, we're gonna be huge, or we're gonna break through anything. They were just doing what they love.
Yeah.
And I mean, it shows. And these guys love what they're playing, and it shows when they're on stage. They're just, it's a fantastic environment to be in. So anyways, so that was 2015, Nonstop Feeling. A year later, they released a 7-inch, Move Through Me, and it was released on Popwig Records. And this one had 4 songs. In 2016, there was a lineup change. So let's see, Sean Cullins on rhythm guitar was out, and Pat McCrory came in, rhythm guitar. So they released this 2016 Move Through Me. I remember when this came out, and I listened to it on Spotify, and I wasn't super impressed with it, I gotta be honest.
Yeah.
This one, I think the first 2 songs on it I really liked, and the other 2 were so-so. But what did you think of this 7-inch?
It's funny that you say that, because I agree with quite literally the exact same thing. For the 2 songs that I picked is Come Back for More and then Harder on You, which are the first 2 songs. They come up again in their next release, but I definitely prefer the Move Through Me versions. Just, I don't know, I feel they definitely have 2 completely different sounds. But yeah, with this 7-inch, with it only being 4 songs, part of me feels like they started to get hate with Nonstop Feeling and kind of released it to like tame their audience.
It could be.
I feel like just because with those 4 songs, it's like going back to their first 7-inch.
Right.
Like those first 2 songs are super heavy, in my opinion. I love both of those songs, and I just feel like that might have, and even in the album cover too. Like if you actually look at that,
throwback.
Definitely with that whole 7-inch as a whole. So I feel like it was definitely a way to like tame the crowd, just because that with Nonstop Feeling, that was the first time they really associated themselves with anything besides just specifically hardcore.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree with that. It was weird that this was released on that Popwig Records, which I've never heard of.
I haven't either.
And this was prior to their big release. So I wonder if their original plan was to record with Popwig. It could have been. But either way, it's worth checking out. The first 2 songs are really good. So we had a little lineup change there. 2 years later, 2018, on Roadrunner Records. So this is major label.
Big deal.
Yeah, if you know anything about Roadrunner, they've been around for a very long time, signing death metal bands way back when, early 90s, and they've run the gamut as far as bands. If you go on their site now, they release all kinds of different music. So it's not just a strictly metal label anymore like it was back in the day. 2018, Time and Space came out, and this one I fell in love with right away. I thought it was a great release. It's progression with these guys. Each album I feel just gets better and better. They're very comfortable on this release. They're in the pocket, heavy grooves, good songwritings, good lyrics, just all around a great album. What do you think about Time and Space?
Yeah, so with this album, it's in between this and Step to Rhythm, but definitely one of my favorite releases. I just feel like every single song, like back to back, is great. Like I love every single one of them. This is when they were starting to get into like using music videos and stuff like that. Like they have a music video for the song I Don't Want to Be Blind. And I remember watching that when I first like started hearing the name Turnstile. Not necessarily when I first heard them, because when I first did I didn't know who they were, but when I started hearing the actual name, I remember watching the music video and just being so confused by it, because I don't know if you've seen
their videos are very artsy.
Yeah, well, like
I think that's the right term.
In this one in particular, like I can't remember what happens in the music video, but like in the end they start like throwing flowers into like this broken down car, and then they have like colorful smoke bombs coming out of it. But besides that, I really like this album. Three of my favorites would have to be Big Smile, the song I Don't Want to Be Blind, and then I really like the song Can't Get Away. If you're familiar with that song, there's a part like in the other half of the song, and it just has that whole song has really cool drums. And I appreciate that. The one thing I don't like, though, despite him probably being one of my favorite members, is I don't like Franz's singing voice.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think I was watching some recent live shows and stuff like that, and he has definitely improved. I don't know if he's working with a vocal coach or not, but yeah, I agree. There was I remember, I think it was the Nonstop Feeling release party or release show, and you can find it on YouTube, and I think he opens the show, Franz singing.
Yeah,
and it's I think his vocals have definitely improved.
I mean, it's cool for what it is, but I don't know. It's him and Brendan have two completely different vocal styles and sounds. So I feel like it might have just caught me by surprise, but it's the next song after Can't Get Away on Time and Space, and he sings on that. I don't know what that Moon. Yeah. That's the song. And I remember hearing that, and I don't know, it caught me off guard, but
there again, that just shows you these guys do what they want to do. Maybe he's like, I want to sing this, and they were like, cool, go ahead.
Yeah.
So whatever. But yeah, Time and Space, I think is a great album. This was I've only seen them once, and it was on this tour, and they played with. I remember telling you, I can't remember the bands that they played with, but
the stage,
the strangest. Yeah, it was so strange. They played with these. I don't even know. They were like artsy alt bands, like artsy indie rock bands, and there were a lot of people there for whatever other band. I think Turnstile was tucked in the middle, and then there was another band after them that everybody was there to see. I had no idea who they were. I listened to like first couple songs and we were out. It was just we were there for Turnstile.
Yeah.
But yeah, they've so the videos, like, it doesn't surprise me like that. You have like this super like aggressive and groovy music, and then you watch their videos and you're like, wow.
It throws you
It's almost
off.
like they shot the video without any music, and then they would just put music on top of it, because it really doesn't. Nothing matches up.
Nothing correlates at all.
It'll just be like somebody walking like just walking.
It'll be like flowers or
Yeah.
some shit like
Yeah.
that, something pink.
So, and again, like I totally respect that. Like, do what you want to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, for me, Real Thing, Big Smile, and Can't Get Away. But that changes all the time. This is a great album.
Yeah.
Definitely worth checking out. And again, this is going back to what I said about the progression of hardcore bands. You know, back in the early 90s when these bands that were I don't want to say they were big, because the New York scene, like if you knew about it, you thought it was everything. The New York scene was like, that was the shit, like back then.
Yeah.
But it was a very small group of bands. And then a lot of these bands started to try and do other things, and most of them didn't succeed. I mean, even here in Boston, SSD Control,
Oh yeah.
they put out a metal album. Like, was it?
Dr. No did too.
Yeah, I'm thinking, wasn't Gangrene?
The Gangrene? I don't know.
I don't know. There were a bunch of bands that tried the metal scene and just kind of faded away. And I feel like this band is just on that same path with them. So we're gonna mention these releases just because they're official releases. So 2020 they did an EP with a band called Mall Grab, and it's called Share a View. It's basically remixes of The Real Thing, I Want to Be Blind, and Yes, I Need My Generator. But they're weird, like electronica remixes. Did you listen to any of that?
Very vaguely with Turnstile.
I just kind of ran through it.
With Turnstile, there's a continuous pattern where they are so okay with taking risks that they will take anything of theirs. And I think this might be like Turnstile gets a lot of love, they get a lot of hate, and I can, for the most part, see both sides. I love them more than I hate them, and I can say that 1,000%. But some of the things they do, like I can see why people would like kind of be thrown off. So with this release in particular with Mall Grab, it's just something completely different, and people are, for the most part, especially like in present day, are so afraid of taking risks. Just because with like media and stuff like that, like they will be bashed like mercilessly. So it's like I can see why people would hate on them, but you gotta give props to them.
Yeah, and I mean, this is just, it's a remix little 7-inch, you know, so it's like they took their songs, or maybe Mall Grab took their songs and like, you know, played with them and added keyboards, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
And that's fine. It's nothing that I'm going to listen to again, but it was just something they did, so figure we would mention it. So it was 2020. 2021, they came out with the EP Turnstile Love Connection, which was basically just a lead up to Glow On. It was 4 songs: Holiday, No Surprise, Mystery, and TLC, which all later ended up on the full length. So yeah, cool little EP. Just came out the same year as the full length, but I think it was just kind of like, here's what's coming.
Yeah.
They're good versions of all the songs. I don't know.
Well, I imagine with that release being the same year as Glow On, I think the issue of the pandemic made it difficult, because traditionally with bands, you'll see a lot of bands release a few singles before the full length. I feel like it might have just ended up being difficult, and just coincidentally they took what might have been each individual single that they were going to release and just kind of put it into one.
Almost like a demo. Like here's No, I always forget about COVID times.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was. I actually didn't hear this EP until after the full length. I just slept on it. It came out the same year. I don't know how far apart they were. Which leads us into 2021, and the album that is getting so much love and so much hate. Glow still on Roadrunner. And I gotta tell you, this album, it's one of my favorite albums.
Yeah.
Like it's just one of my all-time favorite albums. I love it. Like I absolutely love it. And I think if you take it for what it is and don't put too much thought into it and just listen to it, you can really see why these guys are becoming so popular. And nobody likes their band, my band, to get huge.
Yeah.
Nobody likes that. It doesn't feel good because it doesn't feel like it's yours anymore, but it happens. And I feel like if there were a band that it should have happened to, it's definitely these guys.
Yeah.
They're touring with Blink-182 right now. They're just on top of the world. They get 3 Grammy nominations. Best metal act, best hard rock act, and something else. And the whole Grammy industry and all that, that's all label bullshit, and nobody pays attention to that, in the real world, unless you're like in the elite music world.
Or like chronically online.
It's just that it means nothing. But you know what? Good for them. I think it's well deserved. But Glow On, I just think is a great album. I was telling you today that I recommend this album to people because I'm like, you gotta hear these guys. Like, it's so good. What are your thoughts on Glow On when you first heard it, anyways?
So when I first heard it, so it's pretty convenient with this album in particular, just because I was at an age where I could truly recognize and appreciate music. This only being 2 years ago. So I remember the first song that I heard, and I saw the music video with it, was TLC, Turnstile Love Connection. And that song is so cool. And the whole album, like, specifically is great. 3 of my favorite songs are Don't Play, Fly Again, and then New Heart Design. And to those who have actually listened to the album, you'll know that those songs in particular are nothing like what Turnstile has previously released before. It's nothing like, what you would find in any average hardcore band, but I appreciate those songs so much just because they're so catchy. There's always something about a Turnstile song that'll hook you.
Yeah.
And like reel you in and actually like make it so you can appreciate what they have to offer. With this album in particular too, it's very, like, it's definitely a hot take to appreciate this album. With a lot of my friends, whenever I ask them their opinions on the band, they'll talk about how they only like old Turnstile, they hate new Turnstile. With this album, it definitely gained them a lot of hate. I feel like this was the first time that they were ever like confronted with that, just because people were so okay with them like just being hardcore and just like kind of following the rules of hardcore and not venturing out. So with them, and you could even take a band like Knocked Loose, just because with this album, Glow On, this brought them to like Coachella, like all these major music festivals, to which the band Knocked Loose also has attended and been a part of these festivals. People just hate on them. Just like, they'll hate just to hate and won't appreciate the music, but yeah.
Yeah, well, like I said, nobody wants to lose their band. And for me, like, I followed their career, from 7 inches up, and I think progressively, if you take away all that other noise about like festivals and Grammys and major labels and all that stuff, if you just sit down and listen to the discography, you will see how this band progressed. They weren't, put together by a record label, or we're going to make you stars and we're going to write music for you. Like that didn't happen. These guys write their own music. They're super talented, and they put out the best album of this past year, I think. I just, of 2021, sorry, not of this year, but it's a great album. I have so much trouble picking favorites. Mystery, Blackout, Holiday. I know Holiday is like a really popular one, but it's a great song. And even TLC. There's so many on this. It's a great album, and I don't know where they're gonna go from here. and we had talked about this. So their lead guitarist left the band. You said you had more information on why, or did you know why he left the band?
Yeah, so I found a few pieces of information after doing research prior to this recording. So I have from, I forgot what website it was, but it said, quote, Turnstile drummer Daniel Fang filed a temporary peace order against Ebert, who was Brady Ebert, their original guitarist, on the 4th of August that would, quote unquote, prevent Ebert from abusing, contacting, or coming near Fang's home or employment. It later says the order was reportedly revoked. However, on August 11th, due to a lack of evidence, it goes on about just like the peace order and stuff like that. I wanted to do further research just because they kind of leave out bits and pieces as to why Daniel filed this. And when looking into it, I guess supposedly Brady is like, he's selling all of his stuff for drugs. He, someone said that they saw in like a 7-inch signing that Brady specifically had. They saw like whippets in the background. So Brady was eventually, he left the band. They made an announcement. And then guitarist Greg Cerwanka, I'm pretty sure that's how you say his last name, temporarily took his place. And then from there, they've kind of just been using different guitarists.
Yeah, so most recently, it's been Meg. Not that Meg. Meg. Meg Mills from the band Cheese and Chubby and the Gang. I haven't heard them.
I've never heard of either.
But I watched a video of them opening for Blink-182, and she holds her own. My only concern with losing a lead guitarist is, where does the band go musically now?
Especially an original. Like, he was there from like 2010 so on.
Right. So I'm a little nervous to see what the next release is going to sound like. I don't know how much input from each member goes into songwriting, or a lot of times it's lead guitarist that does most of the writing. If that's the case, I feel like we're definitely going to see a shift. There's going to be some differences, but I could be wrong. It could be that that everybody has a little input, and maybe they'll come up with another great album. And I hope they do. I hope that they stay together and keep playing. It seems like they're on a great track. I'm sure that once this Blink-182 tour is over, they'll probably go back into the studio, release something, and then probably tour on their own. So that's something to look forward to. I'd like to see them as the main band. Because like I said, when I saw them, they were in the middle somewhere. They still played a decent amount of time, but I'd like to see them really, take it a little further with that. So yeah, that's a bummer about that guy.
Yeah.
I didn't really read up too much on it. But the bands are, especially a band that's been together for 13 years or whatever, it's like a marriage. And you'll hear anybody that's in a band will tell you that it's like being in a marriage with 4 other people or 5 other people, whatever. And you're gonna fight, and you're gonna throw down, and you're gonna get pissed at each other, and you're gonna quit a bunch of times and come back, just like a relationship. Like, I don't want to be with you anymore. I'm sorry, I love you. Like that stuff happens in bands, and hopefully they'll put out another great album. There was one last EP that came out this year, 2023, called New Heart Designs. And that was with a band called Bad Bad Not Good, also on Roadrunner. And these were just remixes again, Mystery Alien Love Call and Underwater Boy. And it was just like a dream pop remix of those songs. Did you check that out at all?
I did, and I feel like the only way to describe it is they definitely took a good band to do it with. Bad, not good.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of this at all. I tend to, with those releases, just sweep them underneath the rug and kind of just pretend they didn't happen.
I hadn't listened to any of those remix 7-inches or EPs until we were going to do this. And
I had gotten excited when I first saw it specifically because I was like listening to Turnstile just one of these weeks, and I saw it, and then I listened to it, and I was like, oh, I don't like that.
So, hopefully that's not
the path
an omen
they stay on.
of what's going to happen. I don't think it will be. I think they'll come out with something great. I hope so anyways. And, you know, as far as the Grammy thing, it is what it is, and who cares? You know, that like I said, that means nothing. That's all industry people that just want to, like, you know, get together and dress up and have these ridiculous, you know, I don't know, these ridiculous awards for bands. I mean, we were talking about Metallica earlier when they were up for a Grammy, and then they gave the Grammy to Jethro Tull.
Yeah.
Just who hadn't been relevant in like 100 years.
Still really isn't. It's just,
so, it's goofy. I don't even know. Did the Grammys happen yet, or?
I'm not sure. I genuinely don't follow that at all.
All right. Well,
so who knows? Who cares?
Yeah, no. So that's our take on Turnstile. I think they're a great band. I think they're worth listening to from the very beginning all the way through. If you're just like, I only listen to hardcore, then you're not going to like it. If you know, same thing with like people like, I only listen to metal, and then I don't know what to tell you. I think it's kind of silly to close yourself off to so much great music. There's so much out there, and this band just they struck a chord with people.
Yeah.
And if you watch any of their more recent shows, you'll see that the whole place is just on fire. People people love them, and rightfully so. I think they're a great band. So, any final words?
So, with this band, the one thing I can take from them is just they're definitely an example of how you should go into music with an open mind. Because, as you said, there's a lot you're missing out on, at least in my opinion, if you're going to be so strictly with one genre and just kind of bash on the rest just because you're really loyal to that one. Like, I enjoy hardcore, I enjoy grindcore, metal, death metal, like everything underneath the sun when it comes to like extreme heavy music. But, you know, I can take stuff from Glow On and I can appreciate those factors of what's included in the music just based off of how it makes me feel. Like, you can take any of the songs on Glow On, any of those experimental bands, and just if there's something good about it and you enjoy it, then there's really no issue in that. Music's for you to enjoy and for your own interpretation, not necessarily the way everyone else thinks.
Right. Yeah. If you're listening to a band and in the back of your head you're like, oh, 13-year-old girls listen to this. Like, who
and you're like
cares?
a guilty dog while listening.
Like, come on. I agree. It's just, it's whatever you like, whatever hits you in the heart or in the head is what's most important. And I think it's stupid for people to shut themselves off to so many different sounds out there. And I'll say one thing about Turnstile and about any band that starts off, there's two types of bands. There's a band that's like, let's get together, let's play a bunch of songs and just have a good time. And there's nothing wrong with that. If you want to be a cover band or you just want to screw around and you're not looking to do shows and you're not looking to record and stuff like that, that's fine. Absolutely, 100%. But there's also bands that are like, I wish I could do this for the rest of my life. Yeah. I wish I could survive on this. I wish I didn't have to work a job and have a band. And what happened to them is they succeeded. Yeah. And they're a band that's making money now, they're touring now, and that's the dream. I mean, if you're in a band, that's the whole dream is to get like shit. Blink-182 is like, come on tour with us.
Yeah.
You know, like, and 12 years ago, these guys are playing little dive
clubs in Baltimore.
Yeah, so it's like, I don't know. I just don't understand the hate when it comes to that stuff. It's like you should support these guys because they're living the dream.
Yeah.
They're doing what they want to do. So, I don't know. I'll shut up about them, but definitely check out Turnstile and don't sleep on Glow On. Don't be like, oh, everybody likes Glow On, so I can't listen to it. Don't sleep on it. Check it out. It's a great album by a great band.
Yeah.
And we'll see you for the next episode with a whole new band and a whole new discography. So thanks for hanging out.